So today we are going to talk about Git and GitHub. So the question is, what is Git? Git is simply a version control system. It's if you create a file, if you ever use a word processing system and you process a word system, maybe using Microsoft Word. Now, when you save that file, right, you can save that file and you can retrieve that file. So what happens is what you save to your memory or your storage system is what you retrieve. But what if you save your document once and you make modification and save it again? Now, if you want to go back to the previous modification that you made, how do you get to it? There's no way you can get to it. So what you do on your Microsoft Word is when you're saving, you overwrite what you wrote, right? You cannot go back to that versioning system. So Git is a version control system. As you save that, the word that you type in or whatever you save, the document that you save, maybe you're writing a code. When you save that code, it gives you a version. Save version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4. Most of you or all of you have a phone systems. Most of you have Android. Some of you have iPhone. So from time to time, iPhone will send you an update, right? This new version will ask you to download, right? That's a new version of the that's the new version that they're sending to you so you can update to that new version. So they're doing versioning system. So that's exactly, and they're using the same process by versioning their software. So when they create a software, they create new features on the software and they create an update. That update is versioning. So you have version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, and so on and so forth, right? So that's versioning system. So Git is a version control system. You use it in software to control your versions or to do your versioning. So that's what we're going to study today. Okay. So let me see if my PowerPoint is back up. It's still trying to, let me stop one more time. Okay. So everything I'm going to use this slide to explain, I also have it, I have the details explanation in the PowerPoint slide. Okay, so version control system. Version control system is a software that tracks and manages changes to your file. So you have a file. Then I have some demonstration here. You have a file. Like I explained, when you save that file, you can create versions of your file, and you can go back and get those versions, right? So version control system generally allows users to revisit earlier versions of the file, compare changes between the versions, undo changes, and a whole lot more. In the demonstration that I showed, you see that everything starts with Git and GitHub, right? In the pipeline, when you're trying to build the pipeline, right, you start with Git. So everybody that is writing a code, the developers, when they write the code, right, the code is pushed to Git. And when it's using Git, you use the Git to add and to create the version. Then you push that code, whatever code you're developing, they push it to GitHub repository, which is in the cloud, right? So let's go back. I want us to get understanding of this. So I just want to start with the foundation. Let me show you exactly the use cases. We've explained that it's a version control system where you use to version your files. When you create a file, you version your files. It is just one of the VCS, which is a version control system. We have other version control systems like Subversion, right? Like there's one called CVS, there's one called Mercurial, right? But Git is the most popular of all the version control systems, right? You can see them listed here. See, look at the percentage. you can see that Git is the clear winner. 88.4% of the entire developers population, not only developers, because it could also be used for non-software development as well, right? Like lawyers use Git, courthouses use Git, right? Those that write documents now, these days, people that are writing books, they're using Git for collaboration now, because there's some advantages of using Git. When you use a Git, you can collaborate. Someone can stay in UK and you can collaborate with the person on a particular paper that you're writing, right? So 3 or 5 people can be writing one same paper. As you write, you commit your code and it goes to one repository. We'll get into exactly how it works. Okay, so in Stack Overflow 2018, developers surveyed nearly 90% of respondents reported Git as their version control system of choice. Life without Git, right? What could anyone do without Git, right? How did people in the past ever do without Git? It passed my understanding, because it's really a lifesaver in software development these days. So getting to the point, what exactly does Git do for us? That's what we want to investigate. So Git helps us track changes across multiple files. If you have file system, you're able to use Git to track your changes. If you make any change in your file, you can revert back to that the point that you made those changes. If you write a code and you make changes to your code, you can revert back and you can go back to that code. You can revert the entire file to get back to that point that you make that changes. You can compare versions of a project, right? You create the first version 1, then you have version 2. You can compare them and see both of them and see where you probably have discrepancies. Time travel back to old version. I mean, sometimes, when companies roll out a new version and come to find out there's a lot of bugs in that new version, right? You can always go back to the previous version that is released. Say, for example, iPhone released a new version, and the new version is 1.2.0, right? Or 2.1 or 2.1.0, right? So, but when they roll it out, they notice that, it's causing a problem. Many customers do not really like it. They can go back to the old version, revert back to the old version. That is the power of Git. You can use Git to revert your software to the old version, right? So that's time travel back to old version. You can revert to a previous version. You can collaborate, like I said. Many people these days, they collaborate in writing codes. People can be in UK, could be in Australia. You can collaborate with them in writing your code. So you can share your code, look at the changes, and finally you can combine the entire code together. So that's what Git does in summary. If a PowerPoint comes up, I should be able to, okay, it's coming back up now. I should see, I have it in detail. So if you want to read about Git in details, I don't know what's going on with PowerPoint. It's Microsoft 360 is not working for me today. It was working all day. Now, that is how the network issues. All right, so let's continue with this until it comes up. The good thing is I have this as a backup. Otherwise, we would not be going through this class. Okay, so that's the benefit. That's what Git actually does for us, right? You can track your changes, you can revert to the old version, you can collaborate, and you can combine different files, right, together and make it one. So the big picture, oh boy, I sure do love playing my video game. This is a simulation. I'm going to save my game now in case I die soon, right? So, oh geez, this is going to be a difficult fight. That's your game you're playing and you want to save it. Oh, I died. All right. Down 7, I saved my game. I can just revert. That's exactly what it's doing. So that's what Git does for you. That's a particular example. You can save a file and you can revert to the old place that you had an issue. Look at an example. So for example, I start a new project, right? This is my new project. I give it a name. For the new project, you create a directory to start a new project, right? Assuming I start a new project. You add a checkpoint, right? This is the initialize, this you initializing your project. In GitHub to initialize project, you write a command, you use a command called, the command line is git init, right? It means you've initiated the project. Then I work on the navigation bar. This is me trying to build a website. And the first thing I'm trying to build is the navigation bar, right? And this is the very written. And after I create a navigation bar, so I add a checkpoint. This is the checkpoint that I have added, meaning that I've added something to my project. So I do git add in that case, right? So I add some more content, right? I add some more content. You see, this is the content that I've added, okay? I keep adding content to it. I add the first row, which is the first row right here. I add more content, right? I add more content here, more content here. This is the website that I'm trying to develop, right? Then at the finish button row, right? I also added the finish button row, which is what you're seeing right here, right? Let's assume there's a finish button row right here, right? Then I add a checkpoint on that, a checkpoint. The checkpoint is on the dark theme, which is the dark theme right here, okay? Then I alter the navigation bar. Right. This is me trying to write a code, and all these are codes, right, that I'm writing on my file, right? Just I'm taking you through that. Just assume a developer is trying to develop and writing all these codes, right? Now you add a checkpoint again because you've done something else. You update the navigation bar. Then comes your boss. You have an angry boss that says the colors are bad. I need to change the color, right? So what do? Right? So you revert back. You go back to this point that you added the dark theme, right? You go back past that because you don't want to add this back. Now this is you reverting back to the version. You have these different versions that you have checkpoints. So you can go back to this point where you added the dark theme here, and your boss says she doesn't like the black theme. So the flexibility is that in Git, you can always go back, right, based on your versioning system. That's the whole idea here, right? So you go ahead and add more content now. Now, for you to add more another content, you leave this branch because this is a branch that you've created. You create a new branch, right? You create a new branch. And I started with a red color. Now you are not deleting the dark color. The dark color is still in the same branch, but you create a new branch and continue the new color, right? This is a new branch. You add the red color, right? So that has a checkpoint, and this also has a checkpoint, right? I can switch back to a dark mode. If you want to switch back to the dark mode, you can always switch to the dark mode. So you have the ability to create the main branch and you can branch out of it. And if you want to switch to the dark mode, you can always switch to the dark mode, right? You follow the point, right? You can always switch. You can switch back and forth. So that's the ability of Git. You can revert back to the previous version, or you can create a branch and you can switch between branch. Let's keep going. Not only that, after you get to, after you've done your red color, you can merge the red color with the dark color file that you had, this branch, I mean to say. So this is you merging. You can merge this to this, and it becomes, so you have the dark background and you still have the red color. You can do that as well. Okay, so that's the flexibility of Git. So Git, you can use Git and you have all these checkpoints that you can revert to. You can create a branch, right? Like create a branch and you can merge the branch call this a feature branch, and you can merge this feature branch with the main branch. That's all the concept about Git, right? If you get the concept right, then you understand what Git is in an policy. Okay, a tiny bit history about Git. Let's just look at the history a little bit. A guy by the name of Linus Torvalds. Who remembers this name? Who remember who this guy is? The guy that developed Linux operating system, right? Yeah. The same guy is the guy that was looking for a way to version control his codes. And he didn't know what it is. And he just scribbled it on a piece of paper. And in other words, he's the one that started Git. They just call it Git. Global Information Tracker. Yes, they call it Global Information Tracker. Yeah, but that's not the name Linux gave to Linux. Just call it Git. It just the guy just wrote the name Git to be a new version control system. But they say, okay, they call it Global Information Tracker, right? It corresponds with that, but that's not the original intention. So he's the one that actually developed Git, right? So most big companies, Facebook, Google, as a matter of fact, every developer right now, every company uses Git. Most of the companies use Git. Like I said, there are other version control systems like I don't even know how to pronounce Subvet, or what is it again? Yeah, there are other ones like VCS and so on and so forth. Yeah, but Git is the mostly used. Everybody talks about Git and GitHub, right? So it's widely used. So any organization that you get it hired, they would expect you to know Git and GitHub, right? So this is just the beginning of GitHub. We're going to be hands-on. I would so not only in software development, right? Like I said, government agencies use it. Most courts use it. Scientists use it. Writers use it, right? Anybody really. You can also use Git too. People that are writing theses and all that, they're using Git now. It's getting more popular. It's getting out of just software engineering to everyone using Git now. So you can, there's a guy that I know that had a job. All they need him to do is Git and GitHub, right? Just set up Git and GitHub. That's all the job that he did. And it wasn't a software industry. I think it was like a court system. They have no clue. They are not tech savvy. So they just need someone that knows Git and GitHub. And that was his job. That's all you do. Just set up Git and GitHub, and you relax, and they use it, and you get paid every day. You can go to sleep because nothing is going to happen to the Git and GitHub unless you need to create a branch, right? So once you do that, you teach the people how to use it, and they know how to use it, and your job is done. They just need you to be there just in case anything breaks because they are not tech savvy, right? Okay, so you also have GitHub in the other way. GitHub is a repository, and this repository is in the cloud. When you create your file, you have a code, you write a code, and you create a file. Remember, you create a directory, you create a file, then you write your code. Now, when you add that code, you have in your local directory, maybe in your laptop, you have what is called a repository in your laptop, which is the memory space, right? So when you add that file, you're saving that file, then you commit it. When you commit it, it gets to your local repository. It doesn't go anywhere. So you cannot share it if it's in your local repository. Now the question is, how do I share it to everybody in the world? So there's a place called GitHub. GitHub is a repository in the cloud that you can collaborate with other people. You can push your code or application or file or whatever you write, you can push it to GitHub and it stays in GitHub. In GitHub, you can go to GitHub and make changes. You can also pull other people's projects that are pushed to GitHub. You can clone them and they become yours. right? And you can work with them. After working with them, you can also push it back to GitHub. So GitHub becomes a big repository where all informations and data are being stored, right? So every software industries now, they're using Git and GitHub, right? Okay, so that's Git and that's GitHub. Okay. So this is how it works. You have your local machine, right? All these are written in your local machine. You do the combination, which is major. You have the main branch here, then you have the feature branch. Then you can merge it. We call combination. You can merge your main branch to your feature branch. When you combine them, then I can upload my history to GitHub to share with others. And this is your local machine. Then you can push it to GitHub. This is GitHub that you can push this and it goes into your GitHub machine. Now, other people can share. I can clone whatever you did. I can clone it. And now when I clone it, it's in my local repository now. It's my machine. It's my laptop or my local laptop or computer. Now you can modify the code, do whatever one you need to do with the code. You can collaborate with so many people, right? And once you made modification, you can push it back to GitHub. Everybody can create a branch, modify the file, push it back, and you can merge. You can merge your file. If I'm collaborating with this lady, I can collaborate and merge the two files together. Then I can push it to GitHub where the files will be deposited. Okay, so that's Git and GitHub. That's the introduction of Git and GitHub. So the next thing that we need to do is